So if you've never met someone with they them pronouns, I'm glad I can be your first person. My face hopefully will always be in your head when you think of they them pronouns. And this is a pretty cute face, if I do say so myself. Well, hello there. My name is Marty. Welcome to my channel. Today's video I'm going to be talking about pronouns, specifically about my pronouns, and it's going to be a story time on how I changed my pronouns, people's reaction, my whole feelings process, my reflections now, and I might throw in some wisdom. And I don't really know. This is going to be mostly improv, so we're in it together. And yeah, so stay tuned if you are interested, and this is more geared to people who are thinking about changing their pronouns, or people who maybe one of their friends or relatives recently changed their pronouns and they want to learn more. Kudos for you. So, or you're just generally curious. Okay, so it's for a lot of different audiences, and I'll try to cater to all of those. But without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so let's begin on college. Okay, well, a little before college. So, I don't know if I talked about it in another video, but I started exploring my sexuality, my gender identity. As soon as I entered college, I went to a historical women's college in the Bay Area, Mills. And that was pretty revolutionary. Before that, I didn't really have much exposure to queer or trans literature or ways where I could explore that identity. There was a GSA, but I only went to one meeting, and that was for pizza. I know, shame, shame, shame. But I went to Mills, and that was the first time I was living with queer folks, trans folks, and I started getting that fuzzy feeling when I saw girls, and that was a whole nother story. That's how I came out as queer. But anyways, and I know this is very cliche, but I never really felt like a woman in terms of how society defined women, which is really fucked up. But it definitely led me to question whether or not I identified as a woman. And once I realized that there are other options outside of man and woman, and that I didn't have to confine myself to this gender binary, a whole new world opened up, and I was able to really be me and find an identity, words that came close to how I wanted to express myself. And a lot of this was very, very anxiety-inducing, My first year of college, I still went as she, her, and also I went by my legal birth name. So now I'm Marty, but before I went by my legal name. And that was also another issue because, names are so important in our society. So I have a Spanish name. Spanish is split up to feminine and masculine, and I had a feminine name, and that really, jarred me because I didn't want to be labeled as only feminine. But to get back to my point about pronouns, so I started changing my pronouns sophomore year, my second year of college. I grew some boldness. I wasn't a little scared first year. I was a lot more confident in myself, and I started orientation for my job, introducing myself with they them pronouns, and that was again very anxiety inducing, but my team were very receptive to that, which I'm really glad about. And there were other people at my college campus who used they them pronouns, so I wasn't the first, and this wasn't new to them. But there was definitely some times where I was misgendered and people used the wrong pronouns for me. And Sophomore year was really hard for me. I got the sophomore slumps bad. I went through a really hard depression, and a lot of it was due to me being in crisis regards to my identity and trying to understand who I was, which is very daunting for anybody regardless of age. And in terms of gender identity, basically it's very much unlearning what society has taught me for 19 years. So I was very anxious whenever I introduced my pronouns, like in class, and I realized quickly that, you know, teachers, people can ask for your pronouns, but they didn't really honor them. So it was kind of like some sort of nicety, or like asking for people's names but not really remembering it in terms of the professors, but they often remembered the names more than the pronouns. So people were using she, her for me, and I just remember getting so anxious. And for me, my anxiety manifests in my gut. I remember having really physical pain, getting sick because I was anxious so much. And there's this one instance, I had a former friend who is cis, and cisgender means it is the opposite of transgender. It is when your gender identity matches the gender that was assigned to you at birth. So in this case, she was assigned at birth as a woman, and she identifies as a woman, so she is cis. So I had a cis friend who, you know, was very, you know, was on Tumblr, pretty big on Tumblr, an advocate, just that type of person. And she was very much a proponent in making sure our teacher used my pronouns, but she did it in a way that was like, she would stop class whenever the teacher would say Marty and then use she, her pronouns. At that time they were using my birth name, like I mentioned, but they'll say Marty, she, her, da 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 da, use she, her pronouns. And you can tell I got really withdrawn, and she would look at me, see that, and she would interrupt the class and say, no, their names, their pronouns are they, them, stop using she, her. And I remember getting super anxious about that and nervous, because while I really appreciated her defending me and defending my pronouns, I wanted to be the driver of that conversation rather than the passenger. I want an agency. I prefer talking to people one-on-one, not putting more attention to myself in the classroom and feeling like I needed to be saved or something. So that was super annoying. I never had the chance to tell her that, but definitely try to have some agency and claim that agency when you are introducing your pronouns. And maybe if you do prefer other people to step in and do that for you, then you can tell them, and that's okay, as long as there's communication, as long as the person isn't speaking over you and deciding what is best for you. So that was super annoying. And yeah, so I knew that my pronouns were they, them, but I also knew that the school was not for me. It was super small, it wasn't giving me what I needed, so I needed to go. And I transferred to Smith College. This is how I got to the East Coast. Smith is great, a lot better than Mills in my opinion. I like the people more, a little more in Mills, but this one's a lot bigger and more resources. So at Smith, I came in with a new name. I was more confident in my pronouns, and I found people were a lot more receptive. There's a lot more people, like I mentioned, in class, and so a lot more people using they, them pronouns. Once I became more confident in myself and I stopped being as anxious when people would misgender me, I would correct them and then we'll move on, and then they'll use the right pronouns. And obviously that isn't the case for many people out there, but it also became, I was so used to the Smith bubble and people actually listening to me when it comes to pronouns that it became a shock when I would leave Smith and people just didn't know what pronouns were. I went to the Netherlands for a fellowship and I had to teach about pronouns, and it becomes so exhausting being like a walking educator. And education is so important, but it takes a lot of energy out of you. You have the right to not educate everybody or to refer them to online sites, Google, to other resources for them to learn. But in the Netherlands, it was really hard, misgendered galore, and I just kind of got used to it, which sucks, but I've decided right now that I have a lot of things going on. I'm not going to educate strangers on the streets, so I became a lot more comfortable with people using she, her, strangers, and for the people I want in my life, I ask them to use, or I tell them to use, they, them pronouns when they refer to me, and that has worked out for me. Every journey is different, and yeah, I'm still learning. I'm writing a book with it's a fantasy book, but one of the characters has they, them pronouns, so I'm really hoping that it reaches a wider audience and that people can start using the right pronouns for people. And if you think they, them pronouns is something that will work well for you, you can maybe practice on having some of your closest friends start using it, seeing if that feels good, or looking at different blogs and reading different people's experiences. But yeah, there's going to be some hardships along the way, and then there's going to be some really good, exciting moments, at least if, I don't know if my story is normal or not. But yeah, I hope this makes sense. I'm starting to get really, really hot, and if you see, I'm sweating because it is so freaking hot here in New York City. So I'm about to sign off. Alright, so one thing I realized that I didn't include, and that is so, so important, is community. So if you are interested or curious about exploring your gender identity, and you think you're queer, you think you're trans, try to find people who are in the community. And you know that's really hard when you are young. Maybe you grew up in a slightly homophobic environment or a homophobic environment like myself. Then finding community is definitely going to be a challenge. But that community could be virtual, online. I'm here for you, so we can definitely start chatting. And yeah, having people that understand what you're going through is definitely invaluable. So that is one really, really, really big advice. Find community. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, I will answer them below. And yeah, like and comment and subscribe. Mwah. Love you. I'm so happy that people love this shirt. I feel like it translates well in video and in photos because I get a lot of compliments online. And if you can't see, I will zoom up. We have some special guests right here, and they are some snowmen. Oh, damn, I can't get this focused. But if you can see, there are snowmen with going on vacay. And I thought, no, that's a perfect analogy for me. I like snow, and I am burning up here in New York. So I really love you guys because I turned off my AC to film this video. Well, hello there. Damn, I can't get this right.